There is something strangely illuminating about standing in a queue at a parcel delivery center at 8 o'clock on a rain-slick Tuesday night.
That is a rather poetic framing for what is usually an exercise in mild bureaucratic frustration, Laura.
Perhaps, but look around the holding room. You see dozens of people holding cardboard notification slips, waiting to collect objects they bought with excitement a week ago, but somehow neglected to receive.
I suppose there is an inherent irony there. We live in an era of friction-free acquisition, yet here we are, standing under fluorescent lights, enduring the ultimate friction just to claim what is already ours.
Exactly. Welcome to Late Night Insightful English, the podcast tailored for advanced learners of English who wish to explore complex ideas with precision and nuance. I am Laura.
And I am Thomas. Tonight, we are using the mundane act of picking up a parcel at a distribution hub to examine a broader psychological tension, the shift from anticipation to ownership, and why the things we pursue so eagerly often become burdens the moment they arrive.
Throughout this episode, we will unpack sophisticated vocabulary, examine diplomatic ways to challenge assumptions, and practice advanced shadowing techniques to refine your cadence and delivery.
It strikes me that the parcel center is a physical manifestation of our fragmented attention. We trigger a transaction with a single tap on a glass screen, but the physical reality of that item has to travel through a vast, invisible web of logistics before it lands in a plastic crate behind a metal counter.
Yes, and that delay introduces a subtle shift in our emotional landscape. When you click buy, you are purchasing a future version of yourself, someone who reads that book, wears those shoes, or uses that intricate kitchen gadget. But by the time the parcel sits waiting for collection, that imagined future has often quietly faded.
I am not entirely persuaded that it is always about idealized self-image, Laura. Sometimes a parcel is just a replacement printer cartridge or a missing cable. We should be careful not to over-philosophize what might simply be a logistical mismatch between delivery schedules and working hours.
That is a fair counterpoint, Thomas. And I accept that pragmatic needs account for a large portion of those shelves. However, even with routine items, the friction of collection exposes our underlying expectations of immediacy. When the seamless process stumbles, our patience disintegrates remarkably fast.
That is true. We have been conditioned to view waiting not as a neutral interval, but as a systemic failure.
Notice how Thomas used the phrase conditioned to view. That brings us to a crucial distinction worth making tonight: the difference between convenience and friction-free existence.
At first glance, those two concepts seem synonymous. But convenience simply reduces unnecessary effort, whereas a friction-free existence attempts to eliminate every pause, every obstacle, and every moment of waiting.
And when we eliminate all friction, we also strip away the space required for reflection. The journey to the collection depot forces a pause. It introduces a physical counterweight to our digital impulsiveness.
That brings us to our first golden sentence of the evening, which encapsulates this tension between digital immediacy and physical reality.
Here is our first golden sentence. The true cost of frictionless convenience is not measured in delivery fees, but in our diminished capacity for patient anticipation.
There is an important idea inside that sentence. It reminds us that when gratification becomes instant, anticipation loses its value.
Let us break this sentence down for our first advanced shadowing section. Pay close attention to the natural rhythm and how we group words into logical thought units.
Listen first to the complete sentence again. The true cost of frictionless convenience is not measured in delivery fees, but in our diminished capacity for patient anticipation.
Now, let us practice in thought groups. Repeat after me, focusing on the rising cadence. The true cost of frictionless convenience.
Now the second unit, notice the slight pause after fees, is not measured in delivery fees.
And the final resolving clause, but in our diminished capacity for patient anticipation.
Let us assemble the entire thought structure. Focus on placing contrastive stress on convenience and anticipation.
The true cost of frictionless convenience is not measured in delivery fees, but in our diminished capacity for patient anticipation.
Excellent. Notice how the voice slightly drops on patient anticipation to bring the thought to a definitive, reflective close.
Consider a hypothetical scenario to ground this in daily life. Imagine a software consultant named Marcus. He orders an expensive, specialized, ergonomic keyboard designed to improve his posture. The package fails to arrive at his home, so he receives a card directing him to an industrial estate depot on the outskirts of the city.
Marcus spends 40 minutes in heavy evening traffic, navigates a dimly lit warehouse park, and waits behind 3 exhausted customers. By the time the clerk slides the heavy box across the counter, Marcus feels a strange sense of resentment toward the object itself.
I would interpret Marcus's irritation not merely as annoyance at the traffic, but as a subconscious realization that the object cannot possibly carry the weight of the effort he spent retrieving it. The physical friction exposed the triviality of the impulse.
I see it somewhat differently. Marcus is not necessarily reflecting on the philosophy of consumerism. He is experiencing an operational deficit. His frustration stems from a breach of contract. The system promised effortless delivery and delivered administrative effort instead.
But isn't that administrative effort precisely what reveals our low tolerance for structural friction?
Perhaps, but we ought to separate the psychological projection from the functional transaction. If the keyboard solves his back pain the following morning, the friction of Tuesday evening becomes irrelevant historic noise.
That word irrelevant historic noise is a wonderful example of analytical phrasing. Let us pause to examine some of the precise language we have drawn upon tonight.
We use the term frictionless convenience. In an advanced professional context, frictionless describes a process where all obstacles, delays, or procedural hurdles have been meticulously removed.
We also highlighted the phrase over-philosophise. To over-philosophise means to apply complex theoretical or abstract explanations to a situation that is fundamentally simple or pragmatic. It carries a slightly critical, cautionary tone.
Then we had operational deficit. Rather than simply saying a mistake in the system, an operational deficit identifies a specific failure in how a process or organization functions against its intended benchmark.
Notice also our use of hedging language when challenging each other. Phrases like, I am not entirely persuaded, at first glance, and I accept that pragmatic needs account for, allow you to disagree diplomatically in high-level discussions, without sounding argumentative.
If you are asked to summarize your own relationship with digital convenience in a professional seminar, how might you express your position? Here's a model response you can adapt. While I recognize the operational efficiency of automated systems, I remain skeptical of the assumption that eliminating all procedural friction leads to better decision-making.
That is a crisp, highly articulate response that uses contrast and qualification to great effect.
Moving into the broader implications, what happens when this expectation of instant fulfillment spills over into our professional relationships or creative endeavors?
That is where the consequences become profound. Creative work, strategic thinking, and genuine human collaboration are inherently high-friction processes. They require dead ends, miscommunications, and periods of sitting in uncertainty.
If we condition ourselves to view any delay at a parcel depot as an intolerable disruption, we risk treating complex human problems with the same impatient irritability. We start demanding frictionless answers to questions that require slow, deliberate resolution.
That trade-off is often invisible until we find ourselves incapable of reading a dense report or sitting through a long, unstructured meeting without reaching for a digital distraction.
Which brings us directly to our second golden sentence, shifting our focus toward a practical mindset. Here is our second golden sentence. Embracing necessary friction allows us to distinguish between temporary impulses that fade upon arrival and meaningful pursuits that endure.
That gives us something practical to carry forward. It reframes friction not as an annoyance, but as a diagnostic tool for our intentions.
Let us enter our second advanced shadowing practice. We will focus on pacing and pitch variation to highlight the core contrast.
Listen once more to the full structure. Embracing necessary friction allows us to distinguish between temporary impulses that fade upon arrival and meaningful pursuits that endure.
First thought group. Emphasize the opening verb, embracing necessary friction.
Second group, maintaining a steady, even tempo, allows us to distinguish between temporary impulses.
Third group, lowering the pitch slightly, that fade upon arrival.
And the final resolving clause, spoken with calm conviction and meaningful pursuits that endure.
Now let us speak the complete sentence together with natural, flowing rhythm.
Embracing necessary friction allows us to distinguish between temporary impulses that fade upon arrival and meaningful pursuits that endure.
Notice how holding a slight pause before "and meaningful pursuits" emphasizes the distinction between what is fleeting and what lasts.
How can listeners apply this linguistic and intellectual insight in their professional lives tomorrow?
Suppose you are leading a project meeting where your team is rushing to adopt a quick, automated solution to a systemic problem. You might say, "Before we commit to this option, let us make sure we aren't confusing a frictionless short-term fix with a sustainable long-term strategy."
Or if you are writing a reflective journal entry or self-assessment, you could frame it this way. I realized that my frustration with the project's slow progress was not caused by incompetence, but by my own unexamined expectation of immediate results.
In both examples, the language remains elevated, precise, and constructively critical.
As we synthesize our discussion tonight, we return to the quiet holding room of the Parcel Center. We agree that delivery networks are remarkable achievements of modern logistics, and seeking convenience is a completely rational human choice.
Yet we also recognize that when every barrier between desire and possession is flattened, we lose the reflective space that allows us to evaluate whether we truly needed the item in the first place.
The parcel sitting on the counter behind the glass is neither good nor bad, but the effort required to go out into the night and retrieve it serves as a gentle, persistent reminder. Reality lives in physical space, and physical space has weight, distance, and time.
As you move through the coming week, pay attention to the moments when you encounter unexpected friction, a delayed reply, a slow line, a complex task that refuses to yield a quick answer.
Before reacting with immediate frustration, ask yourself this question. Is this delay an obstacle to be destroyed? Or is it giving me the exact space I need to reconsider what I am actually pursuing?
Thank you for spending this quiet, reflective hour with us. Your dedication to mastering the subtle nuances of advanced English is truly commendable.
Until next time, speak with precision, listen with curiosity, and allow yourself the grace of a slower rhythm in a hurried world. Good night.